Hello, all you animation enthusiasts. I am Mel Senra, a self-proclaimed aficionado of animation. But more accurately, a television student who just watches way too many cartoons. Speaking of animation, because that's what this video is about and what you clicked on, animation is the most culturally significant medium, from silent slapstick to whatever this is. Animation has come so far, and there is so much content.
Well, it didn't start out that way.
And for the sake of this video, I will only be talking about American animated television shows. Sorry, all you anime fans, I love ya, but the content could be a whole hour-long video, and I don't want this video to be that long. So, going into the actual content of this video, we're going to start with the 1950s. The American television industry started appreciating animation in 1950s. And I know what you're thinking. Animation was a thing way before that. And you were correct. Animation was a thing even before cameras. Think of flipbooks. But for the sakes of this video, animation in terms of television in America started with a little rabbit named Crusader Rabbit. The episodes lasted 4 minutes long, and he had a little sidekick that was a little tiger. It was very cute.
Crusader and his loyal companion Rags the Tiger considered themselves brothers to anyone in distress.
The 50s didn't start many cartoons, but it did start the industry and people thinking about animation as a medium that they could promote, which really kicked off after Hanna-Barbera started making cartoons in the 1960s, which is our next decade. I'm sure you recognize this family, seen on cereal boxes and popular kid vitamins everywhere. The Flintstones.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Stone Age family.
Aired in 1960 by Hanna-Barbera Productions, Hanna-Barbera would have a renaissance of animated shows in the 1960s, mirroring popular sitcoms that came before them. A classic example of this is the Flintstones with the Honeymooners. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, kids, ask your parents. They'll get the reference. This era of cartoons used animation cells, which I recently discovered I could buy. I mean, look at this Shaggy. It's so cute. And it's only $100. Should I buy it? I don't know. Animated cells are a way of coloring and inking animated frames. Disney used this technique in many earlier decades for their films, in large part by the Department of Ink and Color, which was also known as the Queens of the Department, as it was the only place where women were most likely going to be hired at the Disney company. The ink and color step of the cells were the last part before the animation went to the camera. And to all the girls who were in animation and didn't get the respect they had before, I'm really, really sorry, and you deserve all the respect now. I love you, even though a lot of you guys aren't around. You're amazing. Continuing into the 1970s and the 1980s is what I call the toy era of animated television. This is where the rise of Saturday morning cartoons happened, like shows like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
It says, danger, leave haunted isle.
It sure looks like someone is trying to scare us off this island. But who? And why?
And the Jetsons.
Meet George Jetson.
The 70s also marked the emergence of superhero television shows, even though the animated Bat series was in the 60s.
You let him get away? Oh my god, are you crying?
No, it's just raining.
There's more in the 70s. This really marketed toward toys, which made the character models very easy to transfer over. Going a little bit more into the 80s, shows like He-Man and Transformers
By the power of Grayskull.
took mediums that are not well known, like Transformers was made in Japan, just so you guys know, and made animated TV shows to kind of give them a story so that they would be marketed in the US. He-Man is a classic, and I love him. I also love She-Ra.
I'll get to work prepping Darla for the new crystals and removing the old ones. They're ancient. It's a miracle they lasted this long.
If you haven't seen the reboot, do check that out as well. These shows are really, really good at showing how animated television is really marketed and how it can really make a profit in the toy market, especially when it comes to child animation. Fast forwarding to the 1990s, often regarded as the golden age of animated television, birthed legendary, and I mean legendary, shows like The Simpsons and Spongebob that are still running to this day. If you go anywhere, I mean anywhere in the world, and you draw a sponge, people know what you're referencing. Speaking of SpongeBob, Nickelodeon really made a name for themselves in this decade. Well, they're great shows, and some of them are a little weird. Nickelodeon was not educational, they were strictly entertainment, but fun entertainment, if not a little weird. Anyway, this saw the rise of targeting older audiences, such as that oh so elusive teen market. The 90s really marked the era of new and exciting animation, which really paved the way for the early 2000s, which I will talk about right about now. As the new millennium began, animation started exploding. And when it comes to early 2000s animated TV shows, no show shows it better than Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not just children's stories, but I would say stories for anyone. This show is amazing in terms of diversity and animation. It is gorgeous. If you haven't seen it, which I bet a lot of you already have, go watch it. This opens up to our next decade. In the 2010s, streaming services like Netflix and Hulu revolutionized how animated content is consumed, just like any other content. I would say this era's main TV show would probably be BoJack Horseman for me. Just with its way of animating adult television stories. It's not just very crude humor, but very dark and depressing humor. But there's also the crude humor and the jump scares and the wacky hijinks with Rick and Morty as well. I will also say that streaming services changed the format as there were no commercial breaks and people could binge watch shows, so they ended up having storylines that would just continue into the next episode. I would say this opened up an avenue for longer storytellings, more character dynamics, and just larger casts in general. Plus, Netflix has a reputation for accepting anything and greenlighting it. So in a good way, we get a bunch of different animations that we would never get otherwise. Bad way, some of them aren't the greatest. But we love you, Netflix. Keep doing you. Also speaking in the 2010s, I wanted to move away from just Netflix and Hulu and adult animation in general and talk about Nick Jr. and Disney Jr., which is the complete opposite. Preschool animation really started to kick off in the early 2000s, but started to spread out more in the 2010s. We're seeing a lot more push for diversity and also education.
Then, what number comes after 3?
But when it comes to animation, there's an easier way to show things, and there's a big push right now for STEM, which started in the 2010s. Look to Dinosaur Train, Octonauts, and Team Omizumi, which really just push mathematics and sciences and a little bit of coding. And now we are on to our final decade, the 2020s. Isn't that crazy that that is now a decade? Anyway, we are witnessing a fusion of traditional animation techniques with cutting-edge technology. For example, you can look at the Cuphead show and also Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is not a TV show, but I have to give it a shout out when I'm talking about animation. Studios are definitely experimenting with different art styles and pushing the boundaries of what animated storytelling can achieve. Indie animation TV shows have really shined in the last few years. I'm looking at you, Has Been, and Digital Circus, which come from YouTube and independent creators, which are now getting picked up by bigger studios to do full-length shows, which I think is amazing. I love seeing people who come from the middle of nowhere making a pilot episode and seeing it kick off. So I'm glad that that is now a trend for animation, and I'm really excited to see what YouTube creators and other creators can come up with. I've seen animation on subways as advertisements, which goes back to something called a xenophone. So seeing old animation come back in a modern way is really, really cool. I'm seeing so many interactive things when it comes to websites, apps, and oh my gosh, the pick your own stories. I love it all. I'm so excited to see what VR does. What video game media does. Even you anime fans, I didn't forget about you guys. I'm excited to see where we're going with animation. I will be watching it very, very closely and hopefully one day be a part of it. In conclusion, animated television has come a long way, to say the least, from shows like Crusader Rabbit to our diverse, innovative landscape. I'm going to put Into the Spider-Verse here just so you can compare. Captivating audiences of all ages, which is really cool. Even the oldest animation still has the use today, and I think that's amazing. I really hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about my favorite topic, and I'm so glad that Hofstra was able to give me this platform to do that. I am so thankful for anyone who was on my team who helped out with this project. This really is a passion project of mine, and I hope you guys will subscribe. I am going to put my timeline and other little facts and notes in the ending card, so please check it out right now.
Thank you.